I died on a Tuesday. The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and failure. My sister Rachel held my hand, the same hand she'd held at our mother's funeral, at my college graduation, at every milestone that mattered. Her eyes were red, her voice breaking as she whispered, "I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry for everything." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But I'd seen the emails. In those final weeks, when the cancer had spread to my brain and the morphine made me lucid at strange hours, I'd borrowed her laptop to watch movies. I found the folder by accident. Emma Rassoum underscore final dot docs. Cover letter underscore techcorp underscore Emma version dot PDF. Screenshot after screenshot of my LinkedIn profile, my GitHub repositories, my portfolio website. My sister hadn't just stolen my resume. She'd stolen my entire professional identity. 6 months earlier, I'd applied to TechCorp for a senior software engineering position. It was my dream job, the kind of role I'd spent 7 years working toward through night classes and weekend coding marathons and projects that pushed me to my absolute limit. I had the skills, I had the experience, I had everything they wanted. Rachel had applied too, on the same day. Using my credentials, she'd always been the pretty one, the charming one, the one who could talk her way into anything, but she couldn't code to save her life. So she'd taken my resume, my carefully crafted summary of years of grinding work, changed the name to hers, and submitted it. When they called her for an interview, she'd crammed using my old study materials. When they gave her a technical test, she'd called me, crying about some emergency, and I'd walked her through the solutions like the idiot I was. She got the job. I got a form rejection. 3 months later, I got the diagnosis. Stage 4, inoperable. The kind of news that makes your legs forget how to hold you up. I'd never told anyone about the resume. What was the point? I was dying. Rachel had a good job with great insurance. Our family needed her income. I convinced myself it didn't matter, that I should take the high road, that some things were more important than career achievements. But lying in that hospital bed, holding her hand while she cried crocodile tears, I finally understood. My sister had stolen my future, and then she'd had the audacity to mourn me. The last thing I remember is her face, twisted in what might have been genuine grief, or might have been relief that her secret was dying with me. Then nothing, and then everything. I woke up gasping, my hands clutching at sheets that didn't smell like hospital antiseptic. The ceiling above me wasn't the water-stained tile of the oncology ward. It was the popcorn ceiling of my old apartment, the one I'd moved out of 3 years ago. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it with hands that felt too strong, too steady. The screen showed a date that made my heart stop. October 15th, 3 years ago, 2 weeks before Rachel stole my resume. I sat up slowly, my mind racing. This wasn't possible. This was a dream, a morphine hallucination, a brain tumor's last gift before it killed me. But my body felt real. No pain, no exhaustion, no nausea from chemo. I touched my arm where the port had been. Nothing but smooth skin. I stumbled to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. The woman looking back at me wasn't the skeletal cancer patient from my final days. It was me at 29, healthy and whole, with clear eyes and full cheeks and hair that hadn't fallen out in clumps. My laptop sat on the kitchen counter, exactly where I'd left it before everything went wrong. I opened it with shaking hands and navigated to my emails. There it was, the automated confirmation from TechCorp. Thank you for your interest in the senior software engineer position. We have received your application and will review it shortly. Sent yesterday, October 14th. I hadn't imagined it. I was back. Back before Rachel destroyed everything, and this time I knew exactly what was coming. The old Emma would have ignored the warning signs. She would have trusted her sister, helped her, sacrificed her own success for family harmony. The old Emma had been generous to a fault, believing that blood was thicker than ambition. The old Emma was dead. I'd spent 3 years watching Rachel climb the corporate ladder at TechCorp while I scraped by on freelance work and medical bills. I'd spent my final months piecing together the full extent of her betrayal. Not just the stolen resume, but the lies she'd told about me to mutual contacts. The job opportunities she'd quietly sabotaged, the credit she'd taken for code I'd written during our collaboration on open source projects. My sister hadn't just stolen one job, she'd built her entire career on my corpse. Not this time. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Screenshots of my application confirmation email, timestamped, downloads of my resume, my cover letter, my portfolio, all with metadata showing creation dates. I backed everything up to 3 different cloud services, each with a different password Rachel could never guess. Then I waited. The call came 2 days later. Rachel burst into my apartment without knocking, her face flushed with excitement. Emma, oh my God, you'll never believe it. She threw her arms around me, and I forced myself not to flinch. TechCorp called me for an interview for a senior engineering position. I smiled, keeping my voice level. That's amazing, Rach. When did you apply? Oh, like yesterday? I saw the posting and just threw together an application super quick. She laughed, that tinkling sound that used to make me feel warm and now made my skin crawl. I probably won't get it. I'm totally underqualified. But it's such good interview practice, right? Liar. She'd spent the last 2 days carefully editing my resume, changing fonts and formatting to make it less obvious she'd copied it. I knew because I'd done this dance before. Totally, I said. You should definitely go for it. When's the interview? Next Friday. I'm so nervous. She grabbed my hands, her eyes wide and pleading. Emma, I know this is a huge ask, but could you maybe help me prep? You're so much better at technical stuff than I am, and of course, I interrupted, squeezing her hands. Anything for my big sister. The relief on her face was almost insulting. She thought I was still the same doormat, the same naive little sister who'd do anything to help. She had no idea who she was dealing with now. I helped Rachel prepare. I walked her through data structures and algorithms, explained system design principles, coached her on how to answer behavioral questions. I was the perfect supportive sister, patient and thorough and generous with my time, and I documented everything. Every study session was recorded on my phone, tucked innocently on the table between us. Every email she sent asking for help was saved and backed up. Every text message where she thanked me for being a lifesaver was preserved. The night before her interview, she called me in a panic. Emma, I can't do this. I'm going to bomb so hard. They're going to ask me things I don't know, and I'll look like an idiot and… Rachel, breathe, I said soothingly. You've got this. You've prepared so much. But what if they give me a coding test? Her voice cracked. I'm not as fast as you. What if I freeze up? Here it was, the setup I remembered from the first timeline. Look, I said carefully, if you really get stuck, you can text me the problem. I'll be home all day. I can help you talk through it. Really? You'd do that? The hope in her voice made me sick. Of course, that's what sisters are for. Rachel's interview was at 10 a.m. At 10:47, my phone buzzed. Rachel, SOS, they gave me a technical test. Rachel, I have 1 hour. Rachel, it's about optimizing database queries and I have no idea. Rachel, please, please, please help me. I looked at the messages for a long moment. In the original timeline, I'd dropped everything and walked her through it step by step, essentially taking the test for her. She'd gotten the job, I'd gotten nothing. I opened my camera app and took screenshots of every message. Then I replied, of course, send me the problem. She sent photos of the test questions, clearly taken in the bathroom, based on the tile visible in the background. Clear evidence she was cheating. I saved every image. Then I spent the next hour feeding her the answers just like before, each response carefully documented, time-stamped, preserved. She passed, obviously. 3 days later, TechCorp sent me a rejection email, the same form letter as before. Thank you for your interest. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. We encourage you to apply for future positions. 2 days after that, Rachel got her offer letter. $140,000 base salary plus equity and bonuses. More money than I'd ever made. She took me out to celebrate, bubbling over with excitement about her new role, her new team, her new future. She thanked me for my help, bought me an expensive dinner, promised we'd always be close. I smiled and congratulated her and pretended my heart wasn't full of ice. Because Rachel had made a critical mistake. In her rush to steal my identity, she'd forgotten one crucial detail. TechCorp had both of our applications in their system. I gave her a month, 4 weeks to settle in, to feel secure, to start believing she'd actually earned her position. I watched her social media fill with photos of her new office, her new team, her humble brags about crushing it in her new role. I watched her take credit for work she didn't do. I watched her charm her managers and schmooze with executives. I watched her build a reputation on a foundation of fraud, and I gathered evidence, the study session recordings, the emails and texts asking for help, the screenshots of her bathroom test cheating, the metadata showing my resume was created weeks before hers, the proof that she'd copied not just my resume, but entire passages from my cover letter, my portfolio descriptions, my professional summary. I compiled it all into a single devastating document. Then I requested a meeting with TechCorp's HR director. Jennifer Chen's office was on the executive floor, with windows overlooking the city. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that made me understand immediately why she'd risen so high. "Thank you for meeting with me," I said as she gestured for me to sit. "Your email was intriguing," Jennifer said carefully. "You mentioned evidence of application fraud?" "Yes." I pulled out my tablet. "I applied for a senior software engineering position with your company on October 14th. My sister, Rachel Morrison, applied for the same position on the same day. She was hired. I was rejected." Jennifer's expression didn't change. "I'm sorry to hear you weren't selected, but I'm not sure I understand." "My sister submitted my resume under her name," I interrupted. "Not a similar resume, my exact resume. She then cheated on the technical assessment by texting me the questions and submitting my answers as her own work." Now I had her attention. "That's a serious allegation," Jennifer said slowly. "I have proof." I turned my tablet toward her. "This is my original resume with metadata showing I created on September 30th. This is my sister's version, created October 14th, the same day she applied. If you compare them, you'll see she simply changed the name and contact information. Everything else, every bullet point, every skill, every accomplishment, is identical." Jennifer leaned forward, studying the screen. "Furthermore," I continued, pulling up the next set of files, "these are text messages from the morning of her interview, where she asked me for help with the technical test. These are the questions she photographed and sent me. These are my responses with the solutions. And these," I pulled up the final document, "are her submitted answers. Word for word, identical to what I sent her." The office was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Jennifer scrolled through the evidence, her jaw tightening with each swipe. When she finally looked up, her eyes were hard. "Miss Morrison, I need to ask you a very important question, and I need you to be completely honest with me." She paused. "Why didn't you come forward with this immediately?" I'd prepared for this. Because she's my sister. Because I loved her and trusted her, and I thought maybe there was some explanation. But over the past month, I've watched her take credit for work she didn't do, use knowledge she doesn't have, and build a reputation on skills she hasn't earned. She's not just lying to your company, she's putting projects at risk. Eventually, someone will ask her to do something she can't fake her way through, and it could cost TechCorp serious money and reputation damage. Jennifer's expression was unreadable. "You understand this will have significant consequences for your sister." "I understand." My voice was steady. "But fraud is fraud, and TechCorp deserves to know who they really hired." "Wait here," Jennifer said, standing abruptly. "I need to make some calls." The next hour was the longest of my life, both lives. I sat in that office, staring at the city below, wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my second chance. But then I remembered the hospital room, the smell of death and disinfectant, Rachel's hand in mine, her apologies that meant nothing because she'd never actually stopped lying. I remembered dying with nothing. No career, no savings, no legacy except as the sister who'd been too naive to see betrayal even when it was wearing her DNA. No, I hadn't made a mistake. I'd made a choice. Jennifer returned with two other people, a stern-looking man in a suit who introduced himself as TechCorp's general counsel, and a woman from IT security. "Miss Morrison," the lawyer said, "we've reviewed your evidence. We're taking this matter very seriously. However, Before we proceed, I need to inform you that making false accusations of fraud could expose you to legal liability. Are you absolutely certain everything you've shown us is accurate and genuine? I am, I said firmly. Every document, every screenshot, every recording is authentic. I can provide the original files for forensic examination if needed. He exchanged a glance with Jennifer. That won't be necessary. We have some questions about the technical work your sister has completed since joining TechCorp. Oh, God. They'd already noticed. The IT security woman pulled out her own laptop. Rachel Morrison was assigned to a database optimization project in her second week. She submitted code that was remarkably sophisticated, almost too sophisticated for someone with her stated background. We asked her to explain her approach in a code review, the lawyer continued. She struggled significantly. When pressed on specific implementation details, she couldn't provide coherent answers. Her manager flagged it as concerning but assumed she was just nervous, Jennifer added. Now, in light of your evidence, we're re-examining all of her work product. You'll find, I said quietly, that anything complex or impressive was either copied from Stack Overflow, heavily guided by a senior engineer, or I pulled up another folder on my tablet, completed during late-night study sessions where she called me for help. I showed them the call logs, hours and hours of late-night calls several times a week, always right before major deadlines. The lawyer's face was grim. This is worse than we thought. They asked me to wait while they conducted an emergency investigation. I sat in a conference room with coffee I didn't drink and pretzels I couldn't eat, my phone buzzing with increasingly frantic texts from Rachel. Rachel, hey, have you heard from TechCorp recently? Rachel, HR wants to meet with me tomorrow morning? Rachel, did you apply again? Did something happen? Rachel, Emma, answer me. Rachel, what did you do? I didn't reply. Let her spiral. Let her feel the same anxiety I'd felt waiting for test results, waiting for biopsy reports, waiting for the doctor to tell me how much time I had left. At 4:37 p.m., Jennifer came back. We've completed our preliminary investigation, she said. The evidence is conclusive. Rachel Morrison fraudulently obtained employment through false credentials and academic dishonesty. We're terminating her employment effective immediately, and we're considering whether to pursue legal action for fraud and breach of contract. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Additionally, Jennifer continued, we'd like to offer you the position. I blinked. What? The senior software engineering position Rachel was hired for. It's clear from your portfolio and the evidence you've provided that you're the qualified candidate we should have hired in the first place. We're prepared to offer you the same compensation package with a start date of your choosing. For a moment, I couldn't speak. In my first life, I'd gotten the rejection email and thought my chance was gone forever. In this life, I'd focused so entirely on exposing Rachel that I hadn't let myself hope for more. Additionally, the lawyer added, we'd like to discuss bringing you on as a consultant to review and correct any compromised code your sister may have submitted. We'll compensate you separately for that work. I swallowed hard. Yes, thank you. I accept. Jennifer smiled, the first real warmth I'd seen from her. Welcome to TechCorp, Emma. I think you're going to do great things here. Rachel called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. She showed up at my apartment at 11 p.m., pounding on the door hard enough to wake the neighbors. Emma, open the door. I know you're in there. I opened it, keeping the chain lock engaged. Rachel's face was blotchy from crying, her hair wild, her eyes desperate. How could you? She screamed. How could you do this to me? Do what? I asked calmly. You know what? You went to HR. You told them She couldn't even say it. They fired me, Emma. They're talking about pressing charges. Do you have any idea what you've done? I told them the truth, I said. That you stole my resume, cheated on your technical test, and committed fraud to get a job you weren't qualified for. Did I miss anything? I'm your sister, she sobbed. We're supposed to support each other. You were supposed to help me. I did help you. I helped you study. I helped you prepare. I even helped you cheat on your test. I met her eyes through the gap in the door. What I didn't do was let you steal my entire future. I was going to pay you back, she insisted. Once I got established, I was going to help you find something too. We could have both. Liar. The word came out flat and cold. You were never going to help me. You are going to keep climbing, keep taking credit, keep building your career on my work. I know because I've seen how this story ends. She stared at me, confusion cutting through her anger. What are you talking about? Nothing. It doesn't matter anymore. I started to close the door. Goodbye, Rachel. Wait, please. She shoved her hand against the door. Emma, I'm sorry. I made a mistake, okay? I was desperate, and I thought you wouldn't mind because you're so smart. You'd find something else easily, and I really needed this. And you thought I was weak enough to just take it. I finished. You thought I'd forgive you because I always forgive you. You thought family meant you could betray me and I'd still smile and pretend everything was fine. Tears streamed down her face. I'm your sister, please. I have nothing now. They're going to sue me. I can't get another job with this on my record. I'll lose my apartment, my car, everything. Please, Emma, please help me. I thought about the hospital room, about dying while she held my hand and lied to my face, about the obituary she'd write, probably taking credit for being a devoted sister while carefully omitting that she'd built her success on my stolen work. You're right, I said softly. You have nothing. Now you know how I felt. I closed the door. Her screams followed me into the apartment, but I turned up the music and drowned them out. The next morning, I got an email from Jennifer Chen. Subject, additional information. Emma, I wanted to follow up on yesterday's meeting. During our investigation, we discovered something you should know. When we reviewed the application records, we found that Rachel had also accessed the applicant tracking system after her hire, likely using a borrowed manager's credentials. She flagged your application as do not hire and added notes suggesting you had failed a background check. This is why your application was rejected without a proper review. Had she not interfered, you would have been our top candidate from the start. I'm sorry our systems allowed this to happen. We're implementing new security measures to prevent future abuse. Looking forward to working with you, Jennifer. I read the email 3 times, my hands shaking with rage. It wasn't enough that Rachel had stolen my resume. She'd actively sabotaged me, poisoned my reputation, ensured I couldn't succeed even on my own merits. In my first life, I'd never known. I'd thought TechCorp had simply chosen a better candidate. I'd internalized the rejection, wondered what I'd done wrong, let it erode my confidence until I was taking lowball freelance gigs just to pay rent. Rachel hadn't just stolen one job, she'd tried to destroy my entire career. I forwarded the email to my personal lawyer, a new expense but worth every penny, with a simple note. Is this grounds for a civil suit? His response came within the hour. Absolutely. This is textbook tortious interference. Let's discuss. TechCorp moved quickly. Within a week, they'd issued a company-wide memo about ethics and fraud, clearly aimed at preventing future Rachel Morrisons. They'd also implemented new verification protocols for technical hires and added security measures to their applicant tracking system. I started my new job on a Monday. My desk was in a sunny corner of the open office plan, surrounded by engineers who actually knew what they were doing. My manager, Priya, was brilliant and supportive. My projects were challenging and interesting. It was everything I'd dreamed of in my first life. Rachel, meanwhile, was falling apart. I heard through mutual friends that she'd been evicted from her luxury apartment after missing 2 months of rent, that she'd moved back in with our aunt in the suburbs, that she'd applied to dozens of jobs and gotten rejected from all of them because TechCorp's termination for fraud showed up in background checks, that she'd tried to claim she was the victim of her jealous sister's lies, but nobody believed her once they saw the evidence. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated, victorious. Instead, I felt empty. The revenge was sweet, yes. Rachel was destroyed and I was thriving. But every time I walked past her empty desk at TechCorp, they hadn't reassigned it yet, as if the space itself was contaminated. I remembered her hand holding mine in the hospital, and I'm sorry, Emma. I'm sorry for everything. Had she meant it? In those final moments when she thought I didn't know the truth, had there been real remorse? Or was it just more manipulation? One last performance for the dying sister. I would never know. The civil suit moved forward. My lawyer was confident we'd win. The evidence was overwhelming, and Rachel had no credible defense. We were suing for damages including lost wages, emotional distress, and reputational harm. She'll probably have to declare bankruptcy, my lawyer said matter-of-factly. Even if we get a judgment, she won't be able to pay it. I don't care about the money, I said. I want it on record. I want everyone to know what she did. He nodded approvingly. Then we'll make sure the judgment is public and permanent. But 2 weeks before the trial, my aunt called. Emma, sweetheart, I need to talk to you about Rachel. I closed my eyes. Aunt Marie, I really don't. She tried to kill herself. The words hit me like a physical blow. She's okay, Marie continued quickly. I found her in time. They pumped her stomach, and she's under observation at St. Mary's psych ward. But Emma, she's not doing well. She's lost everything, and she keeps saying she wants to die, that there's no point in living, that she's destroyed her life and yours, and... Stop! My voice came out harsh. Just stop! I know you're angry. You have every right to be. What she did was unforgivable, but she's still your sister, and she's sick, and she needs help. I thought about the hospital room again, about dying alone, more or less, with only a liar's hand to hold. She made her choices, I said. I'm not responsible for the consequences. I'm not asking you to forgive her or drop the lawsuit or anything like that, Marie said. I think she needs to hear from you, to know that you don't actually want her dead. Don't I? The question came out before I could stop it. Silence on the other end of the line. I died in her place, I said quietly. In another life, one you wouldn't believe, I died while she thrived. She built everything on my corpse and never looked back. So why should I care if she lives or dies in this one? Because you're not her, Marie said simply. You're better than this, Emma. I know you are. I didn't visit Rachel in the hospital. I didn't call or text or send flowers, but I did ask my lawyer to delay the trial by 3 months. Are you sure? He asked. We have momentum right now. Delaying gives her time to mount a defense. She doesn't have a defense, I said, and I need to think. The truth was, I was starting to feel like a monster. Rachel had wronged me terribly. She'd stolen my work, sabotaged my career, betrayed my trust in the deepest way possible. She deserved consequences. But did she deserve this? In my first life, I died and she'd lived. She'd gotten away with everything, built a successful career, probably never lost a night of sleep over what she'd done to me. In this life, I destroyed her so completely that she'd tried to end her existence. Was that justice? Or was it just revenge taken too far? I thought about the person I'd been before cancer, before betrayal, before death. The Emma who believed in second chances and the power of forgiveness. The Emma who thought family meant something. That Emma was dead. I'd killed her when I chose revenge. But maybe there was a middle path. I called Jennifer Chen. Jennifer, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. If Rachel hadn't stolen my identity, if she'd applied with her real credentials and been hired, would she have been able to do the job eventually, with proper training and support? Jennifer was quiet for a moment. That's a complicated question. I know, but I need an answer. Honestly, with significant mentoring, probably yes. She's not stupid and she has some foundational knowledge, but she wasn't ready for a senior role. She should have applied for a junior position and worked her way up, so she could have had a career in tech, just not by lying and cheating her way to the top. Exactly. I thanked her and hung up. Then I called my lawyer. I want to settle. What, Emma? We can win this case. We can... I know, but I don't want to win. I want closure. The settlement terms were harsh, but not catastrophic. Rachel would pay me $50,000 in damages, a fraction of what we could have won, but enough to acknowledge the harm she'd caused. She'd sign a confession admitting to fraud, which would be kept on file but not made public unless she ever tried to work in tech again. She'd be required to attend therapy and complete a professional ethics course. In exchange, I would drop the civil suit and agree not to pursue further legal action. My lawyer thought I was insane. My friends said I was too soft. My aunt cried with relief. I didn't tell anyone the real reason. I was tired of carrying hate. In my first life, I died with love in my heart. Misplaced, naive love, but love nonetheless. In this life, I'd nearly died of rage. Neither version of me had been whole. Rachel signed the settlement from the psych ward. Her signature was shaky, barely legible. We didn't speak. We didn't reconcile. I made it clear that our relationship was over, that I wanted no contact, that she was dead to me in every way that mattered, but I let her live. 6 months later, I was promoted to lead engineer. TechCorp had been impressed with my work, not just the code I wrote, but my leadership in implementing the security improvements after the Rachel incident. Jennifer had become a mentor, recommending me for high visibility projects and introducing me to executives. I was thriving in a way I'd never imagined in my first life. I'd also started dating. Nothing serious yet, but it was nice to remember that I was young and alive and had a future ahead of me. The cancer that had killed me before didn't exist in this timeline. I'd checked obsessively with multiple doctors. Whatever cosmic force had sent me back had apparently given me a clean slate, biologically speaking. I'd moved into a beautiful apartment downtown, bought a car that wasn't held together with duct tape and prayer, and started saving for a house. Everything I'd lost in my first life I'd reclaimed. But sometimes, late at night, I still thought about Rachel. I heard through the grapevine that she'd taken a job as a barista, that she was going back to school part-time, studying something in healthcare administration, that she was working on herself, trying to rebuild from nothing. I didn't reach out. I didn't forgive. But I didn't actively wish her harm anymore either. Maybe that was growth. Or maybe it was just exhaustion. Either way, I was done with revenge. The email came on a Tuesday, a year to the day after I died in my first life. Subject: I don't expect a response. Emma, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I promised no contact. I'm breaking that promise now because I need to say this, even if you delete it without reading. I'm sorry. I've said that before, and you had no reason to believe me. But I've spent the last year in therapy working through why I did what I did, and I finally understand how deeply I hurt you. I was jealous. I've always been jealous of you. You were smarter, more talented, more dedicated. You worked hard for everything you achieved while I coasted on charm and looks and the willingness to cut corners. I told myself I deserved success as much as you did, that the end justified the means, that you'd be fine because you're so capable. But the truth is, I was a coward and a thief. I stole your work because I couldn't do my own. I sabotaged your application because I was afraid you'd outshine me. I betrayed you because I put my insecurity above your trust. There's no excuse for what I did, no justification. I destroyed your chance at your dream job, damaged your reputation, and violated the most sacred bond we had. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I see what I did now. I see you clearly, probably for the first time ever. And I'm so, so sorry. I'm working on being better. I'll probably never work in tech again. That door is closed, and it should be. But I'm trying to build something honest, something that doesn't require stealing from the people I love. And I hope you're doing well. I hear you got promoted. You deserve every success. I won't contact you again. This is goodbye, Rachel. I read the email 3 times. The old Emma, the first life Emma, would have cried and called her immediately, would have offered forgiveness and reconciliation because that's what family did. The vengeful Emma, the Emma I'd become after Rebirth, would have deleted it without finishing, would have felt satisfaction that Rachel was still suffering. But I wasn't either of those people anymore. I was someone new, someone who died and been reborn and learned that life was too short for both naive trust and consuming hatred. I hit reply and typed a single sentence. Thank you for the apology. I hope you find peace. Then I closed my laptop and went to bed. 2 years after my rebirth, TechCorp promoted me to director of engineering. I had a team of 20 brilliant engineers, a salary that made my first life self's head spin, and equity that would be worth a fortune when the company went public. I'd bought a house, adopted a dog, started a relationship with someone kind and honest who knew nothing about my past with Rachel and didn't need to. I'd also started mentoring young women in tech, teaching them to value their work, protect their credentials, and never let anyone steal their achievements. Every time I helped someone, I thought about the girl I'd been, naive and trusting and so desperate to be loved that I'd let my sister destroy me. That girl was gone. But maybe she'd served a purpose. Maybe her death, metaphorical and literal, had been necessary to create who I'd become. One of my mentees asked me once why I was so passionate about protecting people from career sabotage. Personal experience, I said simply. Did someone try to sabotage you? I thought about Rachel, about the two timelines, about the hospital room and the lawsuit and the settlement and the years of silence that followed. Someone did, I said, but I didn't let them win. I never saw Rachel again. I heard she finished her degree and got a job at a nonprofit healthcare organization. That she was good at it, that she'd found her calling in helping others instead of exploiting them. I heard she got married, had a kid, built a quiet life in the suburbs. I was glad for her, in an abstract way. Not glad enough to reach out, not forgiving enough to reconcile, but glad that she'd found a path that didn't require destroying someone else. Now, sometimes I wondered what would have happened if I hadn't been reborn. If I died in that hospital room, taking the truth of her betrayal to my grave. She would have mourned me, probably. Would have cried at my funeral and told stories about what a great sister I was. Would have kept her job and her success and her guilty secret. Would that have been better? For her, obviously. Maybe even for me. Dying without knowing betrayal, maintaining love until the end. But I couldn't regret the path I'd chosen. The revenge had been necessary, not just to punish Rachel, but to reclaim my own power. To prove that I wouldn't be a victim, not in this life or any other. The settlement had been necessary too. To prove that I was more than my rage, that I could choose mercy even when vengeance was justified. I was neither the doormat nor the destroyer. I was something in between, a woman who died and been reborn and learned to protect herself without losing her humanity. 5 years after my rebirth, TechCorp went public. My equity was worth $3.2 million. I sold half immediately, enough to secure my future, buy a bigger house, set up a scholarship fund for women in STEM. The rest I held, betting on the company's continued growth. The day the stock started trading, Jennifer took me out to celebrate. "You've come a long way," she said, raising her glass. "From exposing fraud to running a department. I'm proud of you, Emma." "I couldn't have done it without you believing me," I said. "When I came to your office that day, I thought you might throw me out. Call me a bitter, rejected applicant." The evidence was too strong to ignore. Jennifer smiled. "But I'll admit, I was impressed by your courage. It takes guts to blow the whistle on family." I thought about that word. Family. Once it had meant everything to me. Now it meant... what? "Family isn't just blood," I said slowly. "It's the people who support you, who believe in you, who help you become who you're meant to be. By that definition, you're more my family than Rachel ever was." Jennifer's eyes softened. "That's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me." We drank to new families and second chances and futures built on honest work. Later, walking to my car, I passed a woman with a stroller. She looked tired but happy, chatting on her phone while her toddler babbled. For just a moment, she looked like Rachel. My heart clenched. Old pain, old anger, old grief for the sister I'd lost. But then she turned, and I saw it wasn't Rachel at all, just a stranger living her life, unburdened by the weight of my history. I kept walking. The final email from Rachel came on what would have been my death day, the anniversary of when I died in my first life. I almost deleted it without reading. We'd had no contact for 5 years. Why break the silence now? But curiosity won. Subject, no response needed, just closure. "Emma, I know we agreed to no contact. I'm not asking to reconnect. I just need you to know something, and then I'll leave you alone forever. I'm in therapy still, working through everything. Last month, my therapist asked me to write letters to the people I've hurt. Not to send, just to process. I wrote yours and realized something. I never told you the whole truth. That last month, before you got sick in the other timeline you mentioned once, I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes I dream about it like it was real. I knew you were dying. I knew before you did. I found the medical bills in your car when I borrowed it. The biopsy results you hadn't opened yet. I knew you had cancer, and I didn't tell you. I thought maybe if I waited, if I stayed quiet, you wouldn't find out until it was too late to treat. Because if you died, my secret would die with you. The resume fraud, the job theft, all of it would be buried with you. I'm a monster, Emma. I know that now. I knew it then. In some part of my brain, I kept locked away. When you actually got the diagnosis, when the doctor said it was already stage 4, I felt relief. Not grief, relief. Because it meant I was safe. And then, when you were dying, when I held your hand and apologized, I wasn't sorry for what I'd done. I was sorry I'd gotten caught in my own conscience. Sorry I felt guilty when I wanted to feel nothing. You deserve to know that. You deserve to know that your sister loved herself more than she loved you, and that she'd have let you die to protect her lies. I'm different now. I have to believe I'm different now. But I need you to know what you were dealing with. Not a flawed person who made mistakes, but someone fundamentally broken. You were right to destroy me. You were right to show no mercy. I didn't deserve any. I hope you've built something beautiful from the ashes of what I burned down. Goodbye, Emma, for real this time. Rachel. I sat staring at the screen for a long time. In my first life, I died not knowing this. I died thinking Rachel was a good person who'd made a bad choice. I died with love for her. But in this life, I knew the truth. My sister had been willing to let me die to hide her crimes. I should have felt vindicated, proven right in my decision to destroy her. Instead, I felt nothing. No rage, no grief, no satisfaction. Just emptiness. Rachel had already paid for her sins. The person who wrote that email wasn't the person who'd stolen my resume. Or at least, she was trying desperately not to be. I typed a response. Thank you for the honesty. It confirms what I already suspected. I forgive you. I paused, my finger hovering over the send button. Did I forgive her? Really? No, probably not. Forgiveness was a process, not a decision, and I might never fully reach the end of it. But I was tired of carrying the weight of her sins, tired of letting her occupy space in my head, tired of defining myself by what she'd done to me. I added one more line. I forgive you not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Then I hit send and blocked her email address. The years passed. I became VP of Engineering at TechCorp. I mentored dozens of women through the scholarship fund I'd created. I spoke at conferences about ethics in tech and the importance of protecting your work. I never mentioned Rachel by name, but everyone who knew the story understood who I was talking about. I fell in love, got married, had a daughter. Named her Marie after our aunt, the one who'd tried to build bridges when I wanted to burn them. I taught my daughter to be kind, but not weak. Generous, but not a doormat. Forgiving, but not naive. I taught her that love without boundaries was just another word for self-destruction. And sometimes when she was sleeping, I looked at her perfect face and thought about the parallel life where I'd died. The timeline where she'd never been born because I'd been too broken by betrayal and cancer to build anything. In that life, Rachel had won. In this life, I'd won. But the real victory wasn't in destroying my sister, it was in building something better from the ruins of what she'd burned down. 20 years after my rebirth, I retired from TechCorp. I'd made more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. My daughter was in college studying, ironically, software engineering. My marriage was strong, my life was full. I'd won every victory I could have wanted. One day, sorting through old emails, I found Rachel's final message. I'd saved it, though I'd forgotten why. Reading it again, I felt a strange emotion. Pity. The woman who'd written that email had been drowning in guilt and self-hatred. She'd rebuilt herself from nothing, but she'd never fully escaped the shadow of what she'd done. I'd moved on, but she never could. That, I realized, was the real punishment. Not the lawsuit or the lost job or the destroyed reputation, but the knowledge that she'd be haunted forever by the person she'd been. I'd gotten my dream career and built a beautiful life. She'd gotten a lifetime of regret. In the end, I'd won more completely than I'd ever imagined. I died for the second time at 83, surrounded by children and grandchildren and friends who loved me. No hospital room this time. No cancer, no pain, just the gentle fade of a life well lived. My last thought was of Rachel. Not the sister who'd betrayed me, but the little girl who'd held my hand on the first day of kindergarten. Before the jealousy and the lies and the fraud, there had been love. Before the death and the rebirth and the revenge, we had been sisters. And maybe in some other timeline, in some other life, we still were, but not in this one. In this one, I'd chosen myself. I'd chosen survival and success and a ruthless kind of mercy. I'd chosen to win. And as my eyes closed for the last time, I had no regrets.